You will subscribe to my channel. You will tell all your friends to subscribe to my channel. Pretty sure I used that joke before in a different video, but not with this hood. I didn't have the hood before, so it's different. I couldn't resist with the hood. You will subscribe to my channel. Anyways, welcome to Alyssa Jean's Reviews. This is my review for Star Wars Tales of the Jedi, Season 1, I suppose. I guess. I don't know if there's multiple seasons for this. And the first section of this video will be spoiler-free. In case you haven't seen it, or you haven't heard of it, or you didn't even know it was on, like me. I vaguely heard about it last year. Oh, coming in 2022, Tales of the Jedi. I was like, oh, that sounds interesting. Forgot all about it. Then all of a sudden, boom, Disney Plus. Oh, where did that come from? So I watched it. It is 6 animated shorts. I think they're roughly 15 minutes or so each. That are obviously about Jedi in the Star Wars universe. The animation is in the Clone Wars style, except way improved. Like, their animation has gotten so good. It is so good. And uses, I think, all of the same voice actors from the Clone Wars are in it. So I'm going to talk about my general thoughts, spoiler-free, and then I'm going to go through each specific episode and my review for each episode specifically. That will be in the spoiler section. But if you haven't watched it yet, you're safe for now. I'll let you know when you need to go, and then come back and watch this review after you watch the show, and which I recommend you do. I really enjoyed it. So as I said, the animation is top notch. I think it's better even than Bad Batch Season 1. I was really impressed by the animation, and for the most part, really impressed by the stories. So there are 6 episodes. They focus on 2 different Jedi. They kind of split it 3 and 3, although not all in order. Like episodes 1, 5, and 6 are about one Jedi, and episodes 2, 3, and 4 are about another Jedi. And I don't think I want to tell you who. Like, I think you should watch it, and you'll see. I will say they do better with one of the Jedi than the other. I think that with one of the Jedi, his 3 episodes really add a lot to his character. Like, they add more depth to the character. There's revelations that make me more interested in that character. And then with the second Jedi, I'd say 1 out of the 3 do that. 2 of those 3 don't really add much. I just kind of feel like, did we really need this? I don't know. But I will say 4 out of the 6 in total, I thought really did add something to a character. And were necessary, and were really interesting. So overall, I would definitely recommend checking this out for sure. So yeah, even though 2 of them, and for those who have watched it, once I get into the spoiler section, you'll see which 2 episodes I'm talking about. Perhaps you disagree with me. I don't know. We'll find out. But yeah, definitely do check that out. You know what? And I'm happy to see Jedi again. I know someone who has been saying that he really likes Andor because, it's nice to see a Star Wars show and not see a lightsaber. I kind of miss the lightsabers, honestly. I like seeing Jedi is what Star Wars is all about for me. So I want to see lightsabers. I'm sorry. I like Andor, but I miss the Jedi. Jedi is what it's all about for me. So I'm glad to be seeing Jedi again. Oh, and I should mention one more thing in the spoiler-free section. There is a cameo by a character who is a fan favorite, even though this character only appeared in 2 seconds of one movie, but that's how Star Wars fans are. And they go into more depth with this character for the first time in any of the TV shows or films. and I really liked it. So check that out too. So you should go watch it if you haven't, and then come back and watch the spoiler section. Now, for those of you who have already watched it, come join me over in the spoiler section as I go through each episode individually and let you know what I thought of them. Alright, so let's start with the first episode, Life and Death. So this is one of the two that I was referring to that I don't think really added anything to the character. I don't think we really needed this one. I remember seeing the preview for this last year and seeing that they were going to do an Ahsoka childhood story, and I was interested in that, but what I would have been much more interested in is a story about the Jedi coming to take Ahsoka away, because we have never seen that before. Obi-Wan actually referenced it in one of the episodes of Obi-Wan Kenobi recently, but we've never seen it. I would be so curious. What is that like? Did the parents call the Jedi, or did the Jedi just find her? Were the parents resistant, or did they happily give Ahsoka away because she knows she has a greater purpose? What did Ahsoka the child feel about that? Even if Ahsoka was an infant, I'm not sure how old she was when the Jedi came, they could have still done what they did do here, which was to have some really good facial acting by the infant, and you could really get a good sense of her emotions. So they definitely could have done that story, and I think it would have been way more interesting and compelling than this. What this basically tells me is Ahsoka was strong with the Force when she was an infant. Yeah, I could have told you that. Pretty much could have guessed that. She's strong with the Force. Sure, yeah, I get that. I didn't need to see her riding a tiger to get that point. Like, I already know that. I just got the impression that this episode was trying to do the whole, it's the circle of life thing, the whole Native American spirituality, we're one with nature kind of thing. It's cliche. Didn't need to see it. Would have much preferred to see the Jedi coming to get her, but maybe that'll happen in season 2. We'll see. And now we move on to episode 2, Justice. So this is the first of 3 interrelated Count Dooku stories that go into 3 different times of his life in chronological order, and each plays off of the other. And I really loved this. It was kind of a 3-parter that told the tale of how Dooku went from being a kind and really empathetic Jedi who really cared about the people to turning to the dark side. And this first one here, well, first of all, before I get into it, I should confess that it took me a little while to pick up on the fact that this was Dooku and Qui-Gon Jinn. I think I was a little slow on the uptake. Well, the main thing was, this dude sounded so much like Alan Rickman. Yeah, now I know in retrospect it's actually the guy who does the voice for Count Dooku, so I should have known that. It should have been obvious, but he looked and acted so much like Alan Rickman. I was like, why do they have an Alan Rickman Jedi here? But as soon as he started force choking a dude, I was like, why would a Jedi be... Oh, is this Dooku? Okay. Oh, and that's Qui-Gon. Okay, I get it. I'm sorry. I'm a little slow on the uptake, but once I realized what was going on and then watched the preceding episodes, then I really, really loved what they did here. This is showing us that Dooku does have a temper issue. He's got some problems with anger, much like Anakin Skywalker in the Clone Wars. I see a lot of parallels there. But he has a good heart, and what he's doing for the good of the people, and he doesn't like corrupt senators. And this also shows us that the Senate was corrupt long before the Empire was in power, and we'll see that in the next episode as well. So let's talk about that next episode, episode 3, Choices. So this one is kind of similar to the previous one, and in fact sometimes I kind of get them mixed up in my head because they both involve a corrupt senator and a Dooku getting angry at them. Although this one you can tell is a few years later because Dooku has kind of progressed in his anger. He's very much More like, no, we've got to get to the bottom of this. Fuck the Jedi rules. I don't care. And I really enjoyed seeing the back and forth between he and Mace Windu and kind of that dynamic that they have. Because even though they were disagreeing, they kind of really struck me as just two Jedi who had two different philosophies but respected each other. It wasn't like Mace Windu was like, oh, you're out of control, you're evil. But it was more like, no, I don't think that's the right approach here. And I found this to be really interesting because with the character of Dooku, especially in the films, but even in the Clone Wars, I really have had a hard time imagining him ever having been a Jedi. But here, it really works well. Like, he really does come off as believable as a Jedi, but one who is definitely becoming increasingly angry about the corruption he sees and increasingly frustrated that the Jedi Council isn't doing anything about it, which is kind of similar to Anakin. But I actually think that these 3 episodes do a little bit better job than the Clone Wars did with Anakin, if I'm being perfectly honest with you. So I think they all 3 add really a lot to Count Dooku's character and give a lot of insight to his past. And a little bit with Mace Windu in this episode as well. So I really enjoyed it. Moving on to episode 4, The Sith Lord. Now, the early buzz of Tales of the Jedi is that this seems to be most people's favorite episode. I took a gander at IMDb, and this has a 9.5 rating as of this recording, which is the highest of all of the episodes. And you know what? I agree. This is also my favorite episode as well. And I think that the main reason why this is probably a lot of people's favorite episode is Yaddle. Yaddle has been a fan favorite. People have wanted to see more of her. She, of course, appears in The Phantom Menace, sitting on the Jedi Council during the scene in which Qui-Gon goes and reports to the Jedi Council that he saw a Sith Lord on Tatooine. And the first part of this episode actually takes place right after that. Then they go, of course, to the credits and then come back. And now we are at the end of The Phantom Menace after Qui-Gon's death. So, Yaddle has just kind of been a character fans have wondered about because she is not seen after The Phantom Menace, whatever happened to her. Because she is, in fact, a member of Yoda's species, and we knew so little of that species. And at the time, we had only seen one other member of that species. And so fans have just been fascinated by her. I've even heard a theory that perhaps she is Grogu's mother, which I don't know about that. I don't know. Maybe she is. I don't know. But the point is, fans have been really interested in her. And I have really loved their take on Yaddle here. I found it very interesting that Dooku had kind of an ally on the council. In fact, she says she left the council because she didn't think they made the right decision. And she was trying to convince him, Dooku, I see where you're coming from. Although I kind of wish that they made her talk like Yoda. See where you're coming from, I do, Dooku. Like, I would have liked to see that, but I guess not every member of that species talks like that. That's just a Yoda thing. But she had a lot of sympathy to his cause. She was just trying to say, hey, come on, come join me. Let's do this the right way. We don't have to do this. But I think he was a little too far gone on his journey to the dark side at this point. There was this interesting moment where he looked like he was considering it, and it was really good. But I think he was just a little bit too far gone, and we see that Anakin Skywalker moment for him from Revenge of the Sith. This is that moment for Dooku, which is taking place right after Phantom Menace, where we see him, where he is now fully committed to the dark side. And I find this so interesting because we really never got this. Like, he just shows up in Attack of the Clones. Where did this dude come from? They're just saying he's a former Jedi. Okay, whatever. So I found this to be really interesting, and especially as being the climax of this kind of mini little 3-parter. This is the 3rd part in Dooku's story in Tales of the Jedi, and it works so well. So I love this episode not only for the Yaddle factor, but also for the Dooku factor as well. I thought it was really, really good. Now we move on to episode 5, Practice Makes Perfect, which, going from my favorite episode to easily my least favorite episode, this did nothing for Ahsoka's character, and it was really boring. The whole thing was just Ahsoka getting stunned by the clone troopers and lasting an increasingly longer amount of time each time, but it was very repetitive. It was just Anakin going, again, let's do the same thing again. And over again and over and over again. And then the whole point of this was to, I guess, show how Ahsoka was able to fend off all those clone troopers in the series finale of the Clone Wars. I didn't need that. I don't know if maybe there were fans out there who were going, oh, well, how did she fend off all those clone troopers? The answer to me was always pretty simple. She's a badass Jedi. That's all I needed. She's a badass Jedi. That's how she defeated all those clone troopers. That's fine. She's a badass Jedi. I did not need an explanation for this. And I wouldn't have disliked this episode as much as I do if not for that line at the end where we're now at the series finale of the Clone Wars, and you hear Rex say, well, it's a good thing we had all that training. Oh my god, like my eyes rolled out of my head. You gotta be kidding me. We didn't need this. I don't care. She's a badass Jedi. That's how she did it. I didn't need this. I mean, I suppose it shows us one last interaction between Anakin and Ahsoka, but we saw plenty of that during the Clone Wars. If you want to see that, just go watch the Clone Wars. Like, I don't think this added anything. So I'm sorry. I just didn't like this one. Now we move on to episode 6, Resolve. This is definitely my favorite of the 3 Ahsoka episodes, and thank God, because I really like Ahsoka as a character. I wanted to see something that really added to her character, and this one did. It added a really crucial moment between Clone Wars and Rebels that I think we needed, that I was curious about, because at the end of Clone Wars, she's kind of running off. Seems like she's going to do her own thing. It does seem like she's not really interested in fighting in the Resistance. And yet in Rebels, she's very much a part of the rebellion. So what happened in between? And this kind of shows us that. And I thought it was really well done, and I really enjoyed it. And it was a really well earned moment for Ahsoka. And I love how she kind of slips into Padme's funeral. I mean, you know, I don't know how Bail Organa was the only one who saw her with her big ass head, you know, like, but whatever. And I love that Bail Organa is the one that kind of slowly pulls her in. He's just like, here, take this, you know, just contact me when you need me, no pressure. And then eventually she does, and we assume that from there he joins her in the rebellion, which was really good to see. I wonder when exactly this was taking place. We do see an Inquisitor. I'm not sure when in the timeline the Inquisitors first started popping up. This apparently is an early Inquisitor because she kills him and we'll never see him again. But I found that very interesting as well. Anyways, really good episode. Good way to close off this 6-episode series. So now is the time in this video where I will give my rating out of 10 for this season as a whole. So 1 would be the lowest possible score, 10 would be the highest possible score, and my rating out of 10 for Star Wars Tales of the Jedi is a 9. So, despite the fact that there are 2 episodes that I didn't particularly care for, I am still giving this a very strong 9. The other 4 episodes more than make up for it. And, you know, that's kind of par for the course for any anthology series. There usually is going to be 1 or 2 duds, but that does not take away from how much I really enjoyed the other 4, particularly that 3-part Dooku thing that they had going on there in the middle of the season. I thought that added a lot of insight to his character. I loved how they used Yaddle in this as well. And then that final episode, as I just talked about, gives us really good insight into Ahsoka, one of my favorite characters. So overall, really enjoyed it, and it is a 9 out of 10. Alright, that wraps up my thoughts for the 6 episodes of Tales of the Jedi. I really hope there is a season 2. I'm kind of maybe hoping that this is actually just part 1 of season 1, because I want more. I really enjoyed this. So please subscribe to my channel if you have not already. Oh, excuse me. You will subscribe to my channel. You will. Anyways, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications, all that stuff, and I will see you really soon. Goodbye.